Louis Malle's 1987 film Au revoir les enfants, which means goodbye children, based on a real experience in his life, which is that when he was 11 years old, he was attending this school, Le Petit Collège d'Avant, I think is how it's pronounced, which was attached to a Carmelite monastery near Fontainebleau. And like many Catholic schools, they took in Jewish children under false names to shelter them from the Nazis. This was during the German occupation of France in World War II. One day, Nazis raided the school and arrested 3 Jewish boys. And the headmaster, a man whose name in real life was Father Jacques, but he's called Father Jean in the film. They lined them up in the courtyard. The group was marched off the school grounds, and the priest looked at them and said, "Au revoir, les enfants," goodbye, children. And obviously, Malle never forgot that, and he sort of was thinking about making a film about it for a long time, and wasn't able to get up the gumption to do it until 1987. This priest, by the way, in real life, there's a cause for his canonization since 1990, Father Jacques. So this is a movie inspired by that event, but that event doesn't come until the very end of the film. Most of the film is this very real feeling portrayal of life in a sort of a French Catholic boarding school in this era. And this young boy, based on Louis Malle, whose name, the character's name is Lucien Quentin, I think. And he is in the school, and he is sort of encountering this other boy who he gradually starts to realize is Jewish.
You know, I knew it was a World War II film. I knew it had to do with children, but I didn't know anything else beyond that. And I'm actually grateful because, you know, I felt like my experience of the film was sort of paced by the storytelling. Like, I didn't come into it knowing that this was going to be a reflection on the Holocaust or on, you know, these Jewish boys rounded up, or on this priest. You know, all of this information was sort of being presented to me as it was coming under the attention of this main character, Lucien.
So are you implying that I should not have given all this information out front?
I mean, hey, we're doing a synopsis, you know, but I do think that you can describe it as in as few words as a slice of life film about a Catholic boarding school in Nazi occupied France, you know, and that's that really does capture, I think, the film, even though it ends up dealing with a lot heavier things. You know, for so much of the film, its concerns are, you know, boyhood and friendship and education, and you know, it's really subtle in its narrative development, because Malle is constantly moving the story forward, but he does so in like such an invisible way. There'll be like a conversation that you overhear, or just like some sort of interaction that the character notices for a second before moving on. Something will be happening in one part of the frame, and then in the background you see another thing happen, and there's this very subtle and economic and almost invisible way of delivering these plot points that, when things begin to emerge really towards the end of the film, it's not out of thin air, but it is. It still has like a sudden impact, because everything's been so sort of like gradually, you know, I began to realize that this friend of the main character was a Jewish boy in hiding right around the same time that the main character began to realize it. You know, I began to notice that this priest, this principal of the school, was an exceptional man right around the same time that the character begins to realize it, you know?
Right.
And so it's interesting. You know, I think there's a lot that can be said about this film. Uh you know, before even touching on the themes pertaining to the Holocaust,
Sure.
or this particular priest who
Well,
really, I was just going to say, who really in a way kind of emerges as the like protagonist of the film, because
mhm.
um you know, like just taking that title, I thought, okay, goodbye children, maybe this is a reference to like goodbye stolen innocence,
Mhm.
which it certainly is. You know, this is like a coming of age story, and it is about a certain loss of childhood innocence and a sort of growing up to the sort of, you know, fallen state of things in the world. um I thought, okay, maybe this is a reference to the beginning of the film, where the first scene is our main character being put on a train by his mother. Now, all these other children are going on the train, being sent off to boarding school by their parents, and uh, you know, although she doesn't say the line explicitly, I thought, oh, okay, well, goodbye, children. You're going off to school, and this is going to
Yeah.
be a chronicle of your time away. But that line, you know, doesn't come until the last 2 minutes of the film. And then it's
Right.
clear, oh, okay, this is what this has all been about. And especially on my second viewing, you know, I began to pay a lot more attention to this priest. And you also see that this main character, this young boy, is paying a lot of attention to this priest. Um,
Yeah.
so it's
I think
kind of fascinating.
I think a lot of the film is about this inability to fully comprehend the events, you know,
Mm,
like this boy, to me, I mean, the last shot of the film is Lucien's face in like, and not just the last shot, but a lot of what we get in the final moments of the film in general is his face just staring like, and like
yeah,
processing what's going on.
yeah,
And I would say to me, equally striking to the last shot where he's looking off and his eyes start to tear up as they've just left, been taken away from the camp, is the scene pretty much just before that where we get this slightly older boy who was like the cook's assistant at the school, who had been fired for stealing, and he comes back with the Gestapo, and it turns out he decided to help them, almost as an act of revenge and just to get money and stuff. And
yeah. To denounce the school.
yes,
Yeah,
exactly. And equally as striking to me as the final shot, the final stare that we get from Lucien is this look that he gives to this silent look that he gives to
right.
what's the name of the
Joseph.
cook, to Joseph,
Joseph.
as Joseph is just blithely explaining how he's betrayed them and what his reasons are, and it's no big deal. And he's just this horror, so for me that's a very striking moment of the film. And so another moment of dawning comprehension is this scene where he's sitting in a bathtub, and I think at that moment I think that scene can be interpreted in a couple different ways, but I think in
Sure.
that moment he is realizing that there's something different about his friend, or this other kid. I don't know if they're quite friends yet, and that's by the time that scene
Right.
happens or not.
Right.
But,
Right. Right.
so this,
Yeah.
I bring that up because you mentioned this idea of things happening in the background or information being delivered in a not very like emphatic manner.
Right.
That's exactly how the experience of serious matters often is by children, right?
That's a good point.
Things that adults are dealing with in the background, and you see things like, the priest brings this new kid into the class, and he is holding his shoulders all the way to his desk, and it's like, oh, what's that about? This priest
Right.
is like really solicitous for this
Right.
kid. You
Right.
can see little moments of that kid receiving special attention.
Right. Right.
But
Yeah.
it's things that are, but it's not really commented on necessarily. It's just
Hmm.
there, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. I really liked that this film didn't like, wasn't like over careful to hold your hand through it. I
Yeah,
think that a lot of times films are guilty of this, like just like because it's so easy to manipulate the audience's eye and focus and just like, okay, pay attention to this,
right,
and here that's really not the case. It's and yet somehow you don't miss the things that Maul wants
right.
you to get, so I think it's a real uh mark of craft, that he's
Yeah,
able to weave this storytelling in a very seamless way,
yeah.
while also being like really faithful to the experience of a child.
Yeah.
I think that's
You notice things, but you don't always notice their. Sometimes you see things that the child might not notice, but other times you see things that a kid would notice, and neither of you, unless you've seen the film before, neither you nor the child in the film knows what to make of it. For example,
right.
when they're at dinner or lunch, and he's what's the Jewish boy's name? Jean Bonnet, and that's not his real name, but that's the assumed name. His real name is Kippelstein or
Yeah.
Kippelstein. And anyway, Jean is sitting next to this other boy, and the other boy offers him some meat, some pork, I guess, and he doesn't take it.
Yeah.
He just takes some of the other stuff. But it's a
Right.
scene, and they take the time to show us that. And there's some plausible deniability about some things, like him, not being given communion, for example, because he claims to be a Protestant
Yeah.
early on in the film.
But
But
then,
that doesn't explain the food thing, you know.
right. Yeah. Yeah. I started thinking about it right about the time they go to the bathhouse and you see the sign that says no Jews permitted. And then
Right.
he's given a separate bath,
Right.
instead of going into the showers. And I thought, ah,
Right.
and uh, I think that like the war begins to intrude on the experience of these children in different ways, because there are other parts of the film that aren't characterized by this. They might be in the mess hall eating lunch, and there's mention of, be sure to share the food that's sent from home with your
Right.
classmates. And so
Yeah.
there's like the echo or the nod to the fact that this is a time of war and supplies are scarce. But otherwise, it's the kids, like bullying each other and like stealing each other's food, and it feels like Sandlot or something, that
Right.
I so appreciated. One of the things I so appreciated about the film was that it worked on the level of boyhood coming of age story,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then it ends up sort of opening up to something a lot bigger, which really is about the kind of martyrdom of a saint, and
Right.
in the figure of this priest.